Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Defenders and Lab Coats. My name is Rena Schultz, your podcast host, and welcome everyone back to Cyberspeak Labs. I do have some exciting news today. We have a very special guest joining us in the lab today. Welcome, Tom. Hi, Tom. Now, Tom, would you kind of mind giving us an introduction of who you are and your journey into cybersecurity?
Oh, I'd love to. Let's see. I've been in cybersecurity over a decade, maybe 15 years or so. And what is probably more topical and interesting is that I'm a marketing person by background that went into security. And so I have a little bit different view than some people that are in security trying to do security awareness because of my marketing background. And so with that, I work for a very large major national US healthcare system, approximately 140,000 employees in terms of scale, and coast to coast.
Wow.
And so it's really interesting. And when you think about the topic of cybersecurity, as important as it is in every industry now, in healthcare, you're talking about patient health and somebody being
Right.
impacted. So it really is a whole other level. Plus, our data is a different category and more valuable. So
Absolutely. Now, how did you make that switch from marketing to security education?
uh, it was kind of a long journey, and it was called "What Next Job Can You Get?" was part of it. So I would really like to tell you it was this long thought out thing. It was more like survival and trying to feed my children. But let's see. So I had success in my marketing career, and then as things turned, I actually ended up being in systems engineering and doing that for a period of time. And then systems engineering, uh, which I was actually in charge of some classified devices, and then
Right.
that randomly put me into IT and risk management, and then security awareness, just because I fell right into it. So,
Right.
and I would just say that it was ironic that I ended up where I'm at because I'm, late in my career, and I had all these other career experiences that I learned along the way, but I literally do what I love every day now, and I get to use all my previous experiences. So, I'm very fortunate. And so I wish I could tell you it was this great path, but it was kind of random, but I fell into what I love in the end. So that's kind of my
Oh,
story.
and I remember meeting you at a Secure World conference, and that's essentially how we met was because of security education, and that's how I found you. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy is so passionate about security education. It's amazing." Now,
Right.
what is one thing that you enjoy about security education? Is it the phishing? Is it the user education side? Is it just kind of seeing that light bulb like flash when people understand what you're talking about?
You know, I enjoy every aspect, and I consider each one to be their own discipline. So, like as an example, so I have a completely integrated security awareness program, which really it's a completely integrated marketing program, is what it is. And everybody, and as I say that, there's nobody who can't do exactly what I'm doing. And so, yes, I have a simulated phishing program, and it's honestly very successful. And with that, I also have interweaved and integrated communications that all have similar messaging. And I also have training, and all my training is custom tailored training. And again, all the messaging overlaps. And so, uh, very excited about all that, and fortunate to have won some awards for some of that, including the training. And um, there's nothing more rewarding than really looking at incredible organizational change where people's
Right.
behavior in mass, so like in my scenario where we have 140,000 people, that the vast majority behave completely different about security. And I would say too that within 3 years, what's really rewarding and exciting is people that are so excited about security.
Yes.
And so based on building this program from somewhat of the ground up, that and maturing it, I should say, especially just seeing dramatic organizational change. And the biggest thing is attitude. That people are like, that as I've randomly meet other employees, that people, and they say, and we've introduced what we do, and I tell them, oh yeah, I'm simulated phishing guy or security awareness.
Oh
So
my
like,
gosh.
oh, they go, oh, I'm all about that, and they go on
You're
and
like,
on.
I'm officially the company celebrity for sending the phishing emails.
Oh, and actually it's funny because my other friends in cybersecurity too, they're
Right.
like, they went to some hospital, whatever, and introduce, and they say, yeah, I'm a cybersecurity, and they're like, oh, are you the phishing guy? So it's pretty funny.
You're like, "Yes, yes, I am. Do you wanna see the
Uh,
badge?" No.
but I'm saying even my friends are like, yeah, no, we know him. So anyway.
Now, Tom, I have to ask, right, and you kinda hit this a little bit, you talked about how you matured your program. What exactly did you do to kind of bring it to that next level? Or what was it like before?
Uh, I'm very fortunate that I inherited what really was an already mature program. And then
Right,
just incrementally, as I've been in charge of this program for 5 years, we did a lot of, along the way, actually did a lot of little things. And so it wasn't that the one thing we did that was more dramatic was talking about simulated phishing, was that instead of running exercises and then assigning training modules, things like that, we increased the number of simulated fish. So,
oh,
so
okay.
we ran more. Actually, what we did very quickly, we ran a total of 8 campaigns, and we
Right.
quantifiably identified who was susceptible. And
Mhm.
then we sent those people a message and said, "You're in a special training program." And
Oh
then we sent
gosh.
them 12 more messages and trained them. So now they've had
Mhm.
20. But the point is, we identified who was susceptible out of those people, and then we
Right.
did instructor-led training. And because
Oh,
the giant aha was that we had absolutely great people, a lot of
right,
the most susceptible people, they aren't necessarily technology literate. Maybe
right.
English wasn't their first language, and every
Oh,
fish I'm sending is in English. And so there were
right.
things like that. But when you did instructor led training and you spoke to people and you said, this is really easy, you're not even going to believe it. People are like, oh, well, I never even understood what I was looking for. And
Oh,
and so it gets back to training people different ways, that not everybody's going to learn the same way, and trying different
yeah.
things.
That's such a unique approach, and definitely something, in my opinion, that's not really practiced a whole lot, and having that one-on-one time with someone who is in charge of the program and knows, "Hey, here's your foundations on how to spot a fish," just that investment can go such a long way with someone, but what made you think of that approach?
Honestly, I have a vendor, and they had a senior consultant, and
Yeah.
my good friend Dan Mitchell, if he's out there, hears this. He recommended that to me, and so candidly, everybody, my officer, like, oh my gosh, it's the greatest thing. I go, well, it wasn't my idea, but thank you. And yeah, but the key takeaway again is that, because I create training modules and they're effective to a degree, but there's just
Right,
nothing like instructor-led training. You
right.
know?
That has to be so, so awesome just to see, like, the aha moment when they kind of figure it out.
Oh, it totally is. It totally
It's
is.
like,
And
that's
people,
why I do what I do.
and that's how I start out those sessions, is I say, by the time I show you like 5 of these examples, I said, you're just going to slap your forehead and you're not going to believe it, because it's so
Right,
simple. And that's exactly what happens, that people are like, oh my gosh, I get it. But you can train all different
right,
ways, but when you actually speak to somebody and they can ask questions, it's the lights go on.
right.
It's very exciting. And I might
And
add
it's like,
that,
I did that. Yeah,
well, what's even more crazy is that the people that year over year that we trained the year before, so they were quantifiably identified as our most susceptible, and then we track them
right.
the next year and see how they did, and our success rate is
Yeah,
97%. We
that's
90 only
insane.
3% of people that are still susceptible the next year. So, like as an example, 2 years ago,
Right.
we had 2,000 people that were susceptible, and the next year, 15 of those people were susceptible out of 2,000. And because we did instructor-led training, and
Mhm.
I do joke about the fact that, well, we either did a great job of training or we just scared the heck out of them. And but either way, they weren't susceptible anymore. So, you know,
Now, we kinda talked about, like, your approach to repeat clickers and stuff like that with, hands-on training. I wanna kind of flip the tables a little bit, and, we might have discussed this during Secure World, but do you provide, like, any incentives or recognition with people who do report phishing or, that hasn't fallen for a security education phish?
I, you know, here's a really simple idea, and anybody who's in a corporate environment, I couldn't encourage you more strongly to do it. So,
Right.
we had this crazy idea where uh, everybody who reported, we sent them a personalized letter from our CISO. So our Chief Information Security Officer sent them a letter, and in the end, we used software, and it was a mail merge, but
Right.
but in your case, Rihanna, like if you got it, it would say Rihanna, and it was a letter from our CISO with his signature thanking you and personalizing it, and
That is
would
so
even say how
cool.
many fish you reported out of how many, and
Wow.
people just went nuts. I mean, and that really was a huge thing. So if anyone is listening, if you do that one thing, it'll
Yeah.
dramatically change everything in
And
your
that's
world.
so
I
that's
mean,
so cost effective. That's, like, almost pennies on the dollar, using nothing, just a mail service,
it
and
is.
maybe 5 minutes of the CISO's time.
It is, and it was, it was just a idea we came. It worked really well. We sent it from.
Yeah.
I have a security awareness mailbox, so we sent it from there. So my CISO wasn't overloaded with mail afterwards, but it completely changed the culture. And again, it's like you said, it's a free idea, and people just respond to it so much. And
Eh,
ongoing, we do it ongoing.
that's so awesome to hear. Now, Tom, another question for you, because I have a feeling I'm gonna get this question in my inbox after this airs. How do you make sure you put in maybe relevant fish? I know I run into a question often with the community that's just like, I feel like I have to rely on my vendor or I have to rely on just a single person. What are your ideas for people to, I would say, have a very diverse fishing pool, or how would they go out and get ideas?
Uh, I think you hit a bunch of really good ones, and
Yeah.
so I do get ideas from my vendor, which is a positive thing.
Yeah.
But actually, something you may or may not be able to do this resource, but a great resource is your own SOC. So in my case, I have an incident response department, and when there are particular fish that we consider to be really good or effective in our environment, we will actually recreate those into simulated fish so that we're sensitizing employees to ones that we saw in our environment, and that people reacted to and were vulnerable to. The other thing we do is we're just constantly looking at what's going on um, amongst what seems to be working in industry in general, and we also, as we're doing that over time, we're evaluating um, our most vulnerable messages based on what the topic is, and or as an example, if there's credential harvest fish, which is really a huge thing. Is I mean, it's one thing if someone clicks, but it's another thing like if they're entering their credential, you are just hit the next level of having something really bad happen fast. And so we will so over time, we evaluate the messages that we're sending to see,
Right.
and if they are jumping off the building with their hair on fire, that's one we're going to have a similar topic again. And a lot of times, just in general, when you look across industry, there are things like, hey, you got a computer refresh, things like that. People just don't think that the switch flips, and
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
payroll, stuff like that.
Oh, for sure. And it's crazy. I mean, especially, like, working on the SOC side, it's crazy with what gets reported, and it's just like, "Oh, man, that's a good one."
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly right. The SOC is like the incident response is like one of the greatest departments to do. In fact, we have pretty much daily meetings. We're aligned completely where of what's going on there and what we need to go train for, And so what a great business thing to do, honestly.
And a lot of people don't really think about this, but working in security education, you have to have so many different relationships, not just with your SOC, right? Like a lot of the leaders, probably HR, because people might complain about phishing, and it's so important to start building those bridging relationships because those are foundational stepping stones, in my opinion, to a fantastic program. But yeah,
I think you're correct. It's again, it gets back to the fact that I just love what I
right.
do, because one of the unique things about my particular role is exactly like you described,
Yeah.
uniquely so, I interact with leaders like every day,
Yep.
and every department you can think of, whether it's across our very large entire information services department, or exactly like you said, across the organization and learning and development and on and on and on. And plus we do role-based training, for a lot of
Yeah.
those key departments. So you meet all those leaders, and people really appreciate when you come into a department and you do security awareness training,
Yeah.
or finance or human resources, or anybody involved with like
Mhm.
financial disbursement. And because they're like, oh gosh, security training maybe, but by the time we're done and showing them,
Right.
hey, here's why this is important to you, and here's the latest things, and here's the defenses that we have, and here's what you do to defend. People are like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Again, people like, I knew you guys were doing a bunch of stuff, but I had no idea what you were doing, and I didn't understand my role of how to defend. And so it just really brings that to the forefront of empowering people to defend the organization, which is what you have to do.
Yeah, and it takes security education is such an underselling role almost for a business. Like, you have to be passionate because you're inspiring people around you, and, it's definitely a moving type of role. People are like, "Oh, pen test is so shiny," and I'm all like, "You have no idea what security education, risk, and compliance is doing behind the scenes," you know? Like, they're putting out their own mini fires.
Well, to your point, I couldn't more enthusiastically agree with you,
Yeah,
uh, that if your employees aren't actively engaged about
right.
security and literally defending the organization, they are the front line of defense. And
Absolutely.
you're it's only a matter of time till something really bad happens. And I don't mean to be a doomsayer, but it's just what the
It's so
world is.
true. It's why we
And
have jobs.
and in healthcare, it was funny. As I was at a
Yeah.
conference recently, and somebody next to me, there was something that they brought up a comment about how could somebody die from a cyber attack in a hospital, in a healthcare, and she's looking at me like, that's crazy. They said that. I said, no, no, like that's a real thing, that
It's so
like
true.
patients can be impacted by that. And so that's just how security awareness couldn't be any more important, because it literally goes back to not even just business and money and everything
Right.
else that of course is important to all of us, but it actually goes right, like it, and where I started, it actually goes to our health,
Yeah.
that you may not get the health care that you need, because if um, the organization you're calling on, if they just had a malware attack, they may not be able to
Mhm.
pull up your records,
Yeah.
things like that.
It can be pretty scary, but I mean, that's just the reality we live in, and that's why security education is so important, right? Regardless of the industry that you work in. Like, I mean, especially healthcare, right?
Yeah.
But even just like general community awareness, I feel like sometimes even with like my family members, it's just like, you guys didn't realize that was a scam or, or a phishing email, and they're just like, "Oh, what?" And I'm just like, I feel like I'm taking work home today.
Um,
So, Tom, I have to ask, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. What are some of the things you're doing with Cybersecurity Awareness Month?
I appreciate you asking. So we had a series of different articles, and so there's weekly articles, and some of those, I actually, of all things, our CEO president, who's extraordinary, and he is very much about cybersecurity, and he actually personally did the kickoff video for Cybersecurity Awareness Month back-to-back years, and he is a very significant executive, and so to have somebody like that that really is so directly involved is, like, that's fantastic. And likewise, we have regional leaders around the country, and on a local level they kicked off their organizations locally, so it started literally at the top around the country, and then a series of articles, and including some videos, and the thing, getting back to I'll answer a little bit different way. So we
Oh,
had
you're
all that.
good.
We had marketing, we had great videos, things like that. Okay.
Right.
Um, one of the great things I've had the opportunity to do in security awareness is that we create things that are funny, because people, as opposed to a really serious message, if you try
Right.
things that are a spoof or
Yeah.
fun or include humor, it goes so much further. And so a lot of things I do, or some of the executive videos I've done with other executives, then they actually will do a spoof. And so, like, one of the original ones I did was an executive, and he was dressed all up in fishing gear, and he was talking about reporting phishing, and he has just an incredible personality,
Oh
and
my
I
gosh.
actually,
I couldn't even
yeah,
imagine an executive in fishing gear. I
yeah, it was
that is
great.
amazing.
It was great, yeah. So, and as I'm, in fact, right now, like, as I'm creating our security awareness training, which everybody will take, and it's 100% in-house, tailored to our needs, and it includes 3 animated vignettes as part of that, and getting back to my point about it being funny. So the first thing I do, as I'm writing about these characters and what they're showing them doing certain
Right.
things, I make them funny, So, like, the ones talking about the person being a girl dad, and it'll have something like one day when he wasn't enjoying his daughter's sports, and he's sitting on, like, pouring bleachers and rain and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so you make it fun, and then people are like, "Hey, I like this,"
And
and
that's something you can easily do for remote workers too, you don't have to be in office for that one.
no, no, absolutely. So make it fun. That really would be
Yeah.
my message. Make it fun. And you know, uh, one other point when we talked about this when we
Yeah.
met, actually, was, I find it amazing, and maybe amazing isn't the right word, but you know, some of the people I've met out in security awareness community, and
Mhm.
their attitude towards, like, even like employees, is around the fact they're like, that somehow they're associated with being bad, and I could not possibly be more on the opposite side of that, to
Right.
say, I consider, I have never seen a scenario where you could take masses of employees, and if you message them properly and train them properly, that, everybody everybody wants to be a part of something, everybody wants to do something, make a difference, be a
Yeah.
part of something. And so if as a security person, if you're looking at your environment and saying these people are susceptible and all this, well, I'm sorry, but my message would simply be that you're not communicating with them the way, if you communicate with them differently and you really get them involved, or and train them and get them more engaged, your entire security culture will dramatically change. And
Absolutely.
because people are good, people are
I,
good.
uh, I was doing a talk with security education one time, and, you can correct me if you don't agree with this, but the guy was like, he asked a question towards the end of my talk, and he goes, "Well, I have this one person in my business. They always click no matter what, no matter how much we train them. What is your advice?" And I was all like, "Is he doing it maliciously?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I was all like, "Well, he's probably doing other things." I was like, I was like, people just don't be malicious to be malicious. They probably have some intent behind it, but
Yeah, it's I don't know. What
yeah,
I
yeah. I was like,
found,
it sounds like not my problem, but thanks for sharing.
uh, like I say, I quantifiably narrowed down to who the
Yeah,
susceptible people were and trained them. And like I say, the demographics of those people, they were just great people who worked hard and contributed to the organization, and they
absolutely.
just didn't understand, you know.
Yeah.
And
You're
um,
always gonna have that one, right? And
yeah.
that's, again, why we have jobs.
Well, I think part of it too, I guess, is,
Yeah,
what I found was they weren't technology literate either. And so
yeah,
really it's like, gosh, well, I can hopefully train someone to be security aware, but if they don't have some kind of baseline technology literacy, that's like, I can't teach someone to be computer literate, right? That's not what I
yeah.
do,
You're like, "I
so
can suggest it, I can give you resources, but"
yeah. And the other thing, and my CISOs actually referred to this at some
Yeah,
point, was, that's why you have other security controls. It's not
absolutely.
just one thing. So in your business, you should have layered defenses, and
Yep.
so that addresses it.
Security's an onion, we have a lot of layers.
Yes, we do. If
So,
we're
Tom,
doing it well, yeah.
absolutely. So, Tom, we are heading towards the end of the
Mhm.
show, and I always like to end with 2 questions, super, super easy questions or not, I don't know. But first question is, what is some advice that you would like to give our listeners? And this could be something you might have learned through your journey or something, through security education or, how to shop for bargains at Walmart. So, what is your advice to our listeners?
I really kind of reiterating what I said before, that people are good, and treat them like they're good, and try to get people engaged because people want to be a part of something. And so kind of start out with that, and start out with the fact that, if you were going to be think like a marketing person. And so put on a different hat, and you'll find that to be helpful, and make it fun. I'm sorry, I should have emphasized, make it fun.
Fun Fishing Friday.
Yeah, it won't always be fun, but there's times when you can make it fun, and it'll go a really long ways.
That's really good advice, absolutely. And then the second question I have is, what is a good way that people can follow you? Is it through LinkedIn, or do you have a preferred contact method?
Yeah, actually, if somebody wants to contact me on LinkedIn, you can easily find me by my last name, right? There's not too many of those people around.
No.
So, and as somebody once said, and they're all loud, the entire family. So, but you could easily find me on LinkedIn, and I'd be delighted to connect. And Rihanna, thank you so much. You're so kind to have me here today, and you're just a joy. So thank you so
Oh,
much.
well, thank you, Tom. It was so great having you join us today in the lab with defenders and lab coats, and thank you so much for sharing your journey and talking about security education. That's always a topic that we can all learn from. So thank you so much for being passionate with what you do.
I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a great day. Thank
You
you.
too.